I was 7 when my sister Amanda got accepted to Princeton. The whole family threw a party. When I was 7, I was still struggling to read aloud without stumbling over words. Mom would sigh whenever teachers called about my learning differences. Amanda's the brilliant one, Dad would tell relatives at gatherings. There's more practical. Practical became the family code for not smart enough. Amanda sailed through her undergraduate degree in biochemistry, then medical school at Johns Hopkins. I took 5 years to finish my bachelor's degree at a small state school, working 3 jobs to pay my own tuition after Dad said my education wasn't worth the investment like Amanda's was. At my college graduation, Amanda was in her 2nd year of residency. She couldn't make it to my ceremony. Too busy saving actual lives, she texted. Mom and Dad came but left immediately after to catch Amanda's presentation at a medical conference in Boston. We're so proud of both our girls, Mom had said, hugging me quickly. Amanda's breakthrough research and your persistence. Persistence. Another family code word. What they didn't know was that during those 5 years of undergraduate work, I'd been doing more than just persisting. I'd been conducting independent research in a tiny lab space my chemistry professor had given me access to after hours. While everyone assumed I was slow because I took longer to finish my degree, I was actually spending 60 hours a week running experiments, analyzing data, failing hundreds of times and trying again. My professor, Dr. Chen, was the only one who saw what I was really doing. You have an extraordinary mind, Sarah, she told me during my junior year. The kind that sees connections others miss. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. After graduation, I'd applied to PhD programs. Got rejected from 17 schools. Amanda had laughed when she heard. Maybe grad school isn't for everyone, she'd said over a family dinner. There's no shame in finding a different path. The 18th school was Harvard. They'd seen my research proposal, the preliminary data I'd gathered in Dr. Chen's lab. They offered me a full scholarship plus a research stipend. I accepted immediately but didn't tell my family the details. Sarah got into some graduate program, Mom had told relatives vaguely. We're not really sure what she'll do with it. I let them think whatever they wanted. I was too busy working 18-hour days in the lab, pursuing something that had captivated me since my undergraduate research. A novel approach to targeting cancer cells without destroying healthy tissue. The traditional methods were brutally toxic. I wanted something different. Something precise. My family rarely asked about my work. When they did, I kept answers brief. Still in the lab. Still researching. They'd nod politely and change the subject to Amanda's latest achievement, her promotion to attending physician, her publication in the New England Journal of Medicine. 5 years into my PhD program, I had my first major breakthrough. The compound I'd been developing showed unprecedented results in laboratory models, destroying cancer cells with 97% specificity while leaving healthy cells completely untouched. Dr. Chen, now my doctoral advisor, stared at the data for 10 minutes straight. Sarah, do you understand what this means? Her hands were shaking. This could change everything. I defended my dissertation 3 months later. Dr. Sarah Williams, PhD in biochemistry, Harvard University. My parents came to the defense but seemed confused by the presentation. Very technical, Dad had said afterward. I'm sure it's impressive to other scientists. Amanda hadn't come at all. Can't get away from the hospital, she texted. After graduation, Harvard offered me a position as assistant professor and gave me my own research lab. At 29, I was one of the youngest faculty members in the department. My family's response was muted. That's nice, dear, Mom had said. Amanda just made chief resident. I spent the next 3 years refining my research, conducting clinical trials, publishing papers in the most prestigious journals in the field. The results were extraordinary. The pharmaceutical companies started calling. The patent attorneys got involved. My family still had no idea. Every family gathering was the same. Amanda's achievements took center stage. My work was an afterthought, something they didn't understand and didn't really try to. Last Thanksgiving, I'd shown up to my parents' house alone as usual. Amanda arrived with her fiancé, Mark, a successful cardiologist. The house was decorated with "Congratulations Amanda and Mark" banners. They'd just gotten engaged. Sarah. Mom had greeted me at the door. You're early. We're still setting up for Amanda's engagement celebration. I'd known about the engagement for 3 weeks. No one had mentioned they were turning Thanksgiving into Amanda's party. I brought a pie, I said, holding up the dessert I'd made at 3 that morning after leaving the lab. Oh, how sweet. Just put it in the kitchen. Amanda's caterer brought most of the food. The house filled with relatives. Everyone wanted to hear about Amanda's engagement, her recent promotion to assistant chief of medicine, her upcoming paper in JAMA. I sat on the couch answering polite questions about my work with vague responses. Still doing research? Uncle Tom asked. That's nice. Steady work, I suppose. Amanda held court in the center of the room, her engagement ring catching the light. Mark stood beside her, proud and attentive. They made a striking couple, successful, confident, clearly going places. Sarah's still at her little lab, I heard Amanda tell a cousin. Very dedicated to her experiments. It's admirable, really, how she's found her niche. Her niche. Like I was a strange creature that had found a small hole to hide in. Dinner was served at a long table. Amanda and Mark sat at the head with my parents. I was at the far end between my teenage nephew and my aunt who was mostly deaf. The conversation flowed around me, a river I wasn't really part of. Amanda, tell everyone about your latest patient success. Mom prompted, beaming. Amanda launched into a story about a complicated cardiac surgery case she'd consulted on. Everyone listened with rapt attention. When she finished, applause broke out. Incredible, Dad said, his voice thick with pride. Our daughter saving lives. I took another bite of turkey. In my pocket my phone buzzed. I ignored it. It was probably the lab. Something always needed attention. Sarah, are you still doing those experiments? Aunt Carol asked loudly from across the table. The ones with the mice? Cellular research, I corrected gently. Not mice. Cell cultures mostly. That's nice, dear. Do you get to use microscopes? Amanda laughed. Sarah's been staring through microscopes for years, Aunt Carol. It's very detail-oriented work. Requires a lot of patience. She smiled at me, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Sarah's always been patient. Persistent. There was that word again. Must be very different from real medicine, Mark commented. Amanda tells me you're still working on your theories? Not theories, I said quietly. Evidence-based research. Right. Of course. He took a sip of wine. Still must be nice to work in a lab. Less pressure than clinical medicine. No life or death decisions. My phone buzzed again. And again. I excused myself from the table and checked it in the hallway. 7 missed calls from Dr. Chin. 12 from the Harvard Dean's office. 3 from numbers I didn't recognize. I stepped into the bathroom and called Dr. Chin back. Sarah. Thank God. Where are you? Her voice was breathless with excitement. My parents' house. Thanksgiving dinner. What's wrong? Wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. The patent office called. Sarah, they approved it. All of it. The compound, the delivery mechanism, the entire treatment protocol. And the pharmaceutical companies, there's a bidding war. The lowest offer so far is $3.2 billion. I sat down on the edge of the bathtub. $3.2 billion? And that's just the starting point. The FDA fast-tracked the clinical trials based on your phase 2 results. Sarah, they're calling it the biggest breakthrough in cancer treatment in 50 years. The Harvard Medical School dean wants to speak with you immediately. The Nobel Committee's office has been trying to reach you. CNN, the New York Times, they're all calling the university. Where are you? We need you back here. I'm at Thanksgiving dinner. Sarah, you need to get back to Cambridge. There's a press conference scheduled for Monday morning. This is happening. Your treatment is going to save millions of lives. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. Same person I'd always been. Same face my family had always dismissed as the less impressive daughter. I'll be there Sunday night, I said. Let me finish dinner with my family first. Your family must be so proud, Dr. Chin said. This is extraordinary. I hung up and returned to the table. Amanda was now telling a story about a difficult patient, demonstrating her brilliant bedside manner. Everyone laughed at the appropriate moments. I sat back down. My nephew looked at me curiously. You okay? You look weird. I'm fine, I said. The conversation continued around me. Amanda's achievements, Mark's successes, their wedding plans. I finished my turkey and sweet potatoes. My phone kept buzzing in my pocket. I ignored it. After dinner we moved to the living room for dessert. Amanda's engagement cake took pride of place, a towering confection decorated with sugar flowers. My pie sat to the side mostly untouched. Sarah, you've been awfully quiet, Mom said as she served cake. Everything okay with your research? It's fine, I said. Still playing with test tubes? Uncle Tom chuckled. When are you going to do something real with that fancy degree? Amanda cut in before I could respond. Sarah's very committed to her work. It's just different from clinical practice. More theoretical. She turned to me with that same not quite kind smile. Are you still trying to solve cancer? That's been your pet project for years, right? I work in oncological research, yes. So ambitious, she said and somehow made it sound like a criticism. Stop pretending to be a scientist, Sarah. We all know basic research is where people go when they can't handle real medicine. The room got quiet. A few uncomfortable laughs. Mom jumped in quickly. Now, Amanda. No, I'm serious, Amanda continued, warming to her topic. Her success had made her bold, confident in her superiority. Sarah's been in that lab for 8 years now? And what's come of it? A few published papers no one reads? Meanwhile, I'm actually saving lives every day in the hospital. She looked around the room, gathering support. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. Maybe it's time Sarah considered a different path. Maybe try vocational school instead. Nothing wrong with being a lab technician. Very respectable work. Mark nodded supportively. Amanda has a point. Academic research is fine for some people, but clinical medicine is where you actually make a difference. Dad shifted uncomfortably. Well, Sarah's always been more suited to the background work. Not everyone can handle the pressure of patient care like Amanda. Exactly, Amanda said. Sarah's found her level. There's no shame in that. She's good at following protocols, doing repetitive tasks. Very detail-oriented. She said it like she was complimenting a particularly well-trained assistant. I smiled politely and said nothing. My phone was vibrating continuously now. The Harvard Dean's office. A 617 number I recognized as the university president. The thing is, Amanda continued, emboldened by my silence, some people are meant to lead, to innovate, to be at the forefront of medicine. And some people are meant to be support staff. Sarah's more the support staff type. I've always known that about her. She tried so hard to keep up with you, Mom said, meaning well but making it worse. Ever since you were children. But you're just naturally brilliant, Amanda. Sarah had to work so much harder for everything. Which is admirable. Amanda added quickly. Her persistence is really impressive. Even if the results aren't, well, significant. My phone rang out loud this time. The custom ringtone I'd set for the Harvard Dean's office. Everyone turned to look at me. Sorry, I said, pulling out my phone. I should take this. During dessert? Amanda looked annoyed. Can't your little lab wait? I stood up and answered the call. Dr. Williams speaking. Sarah. Dean Richardson's voice boomed through the speaker, loud enough that several people at the table could hear. We've been trying to reach you all afternoon. Where are you? Family Thanksgiving dinner, Dean Richardson. Well, get back here immediately. The entire medical community is trying to reach you. Do you have any idea what's happened? Your patent was approved and the bidding has reached $4.1 billion. Pfizer just entered the race. The FDA is calling your treatment the most significant advancement in oncology since chemotherapy was developed. We need you for interviews. 60 Minutes wants you tomorrow. The Nobel Committee's office has called 3 times. Sarah, your breakthrough is going to revolutionize cancer treatment globally. We're talking about saving tens of millions of lives. The Harvard Medical School is hosting a press conference Monday, and the president wants you to speak at the White House next month. The room had gone completely silent. Everyone was staring at me. I understand, Dean Richardson. I'll be back tomorrow evening. Tomorrow? Sir, this can't wait. The world needs to hear from you. You're about to become the most celebrated medical researcher of this generation. Monday morning, then. I'll be there Sunday night. Fine. But Sarah, congratulations. What you've accomplished is extraordinary. Your cellular targeting mechanism is pure genius. The entire scientific community is in awe. I hung up. The silence in the room was deafening. Amanda's face had gone pale. What was that about? My phone rang again immediately. This time, a number with a Swedish country code. I knew that number. The Nobel Assembly at Karolinska Institute. I answered. Dr. Sarah Williams. Dr. Williams, this is Professor Anderson from the Nobel Committee in Physiology or Medicine. We've been attempting to reach you regarding your breakthrough in targeted cancer therapy. The committee would like to discuss your research and its implications. Would you be available for a call on Monday morning? Yes, Professor. Monday morning works perfectly. Excellent. And may I offer my personal congratulations? Your work is nothing short of revolutionary. We'll speak Monday. I hung up and looked at my family. They were all frozen, forks halfway to mouths, staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Sarah, Mom said slowly. Did he say Nobel Committee? Yes. And the dean said, for $1 billion? Dad's voice cracked on the number. 4.1 billion. Though I expect it will go higher. Several pharmaceutical companies are bidding. Amanda stood up abruptly. What are you talking about? What patent? What breakthrough? I pulled out my phone and opened my email. Forwarded the patent approval documentation to the family group chat. My research for the past 8 years. A novel compound that targets cancer cells with 97% specificity while leaving healthy tissue unharmed. It's been through successful Phase 1 and Phase 2 clinical trials. The FDA fast-tracked it for Phase 3. Early projections suggest it could extend survival rates for stage 4 cancer patients by an average of 15 years, with significantly improved quality of life. I watched them open their phones, their faces as they tried to comprehend the technical language, the scope of what they were reading. But you're just... Amanda's voice trailed off. You're doing basic research. You're not a real doctor. I have a PhD from Harvard. I'm an assistant professor in their biochemistry department. I run my own research lab. And as of 3 hours ago, I'm the developer of what the FDA is calling the most significant cancer treatment breakthrough in half a century. Mark looked like he might be sick. $4 billion? For the patent licensing, yes. Though I don't get all of that, Harvard gets a significant portion, as do my research partners. But my share will be substantial. Mom sat down heavily. Why didn't you tell us? I tried. For years. You weren't interested. Every family gathering, every conversation about my work, you dismissed it as experiments and theories. You told me I wasn't cut out for real medicine. That I should find my level. Amanda's hands were shaking. You let us think you were failing. You let us think your research was going nowhere. I didn't let you think anything. You assumed. I corrected you multiple times. You just didn't listen. You were too busy being the successful one, the brilliant one, the one who was actually making a difference. Dad's face had gone red. But you never said anything about breakthrough research or patents or... I published 17 papers in the past 3 years in Nature, Science and Cell. I presented at the American Association for Cancer Research Conference. Twice. I was profiled in the MIT Technology Review last year. You never asked to read any of it. You never came to any of my presentations. You came to Amanda's every single time. Those journals, Uncle Tom started, are the most prestigious scientific publications in the world. I finished. Amanda knows that. She reads them for her own field. He saw my work. She just chose to dismiss it. Amanda's engagement ring caught the light as she gripped the edge of the table. You made me look like a fool. No, you did that yourself. I've been telling you for 8 years that my research was significant. You chose to believe I was playing in a lab because I wasn't good enough for clinical medicine. You chose to mock me at every opportunity, to remind everyone that you were the successful sister and I was just persistent. My phone buzzed again. Then the New York Times. Then the BBC. I need to go, I said, standing. I have to prepare for the press conference on Monday. And I should probably start returning these calls. Apparently, the governor wants to give me an award and the president wants me at the White House. Sarah, wait. Mom reached for me. We didn't know. We didn't understand. You didn't want to understand. There's a difference. I grabbed my coat from the hallway. Behind me, the room exploded into chaos. Amanda was crying. Dad was frantically Googling my name. Mom was trying to read the patent documents on her phone. Uncle Tom was telling anyone who would listen that he'd always known I was brilliant. I walked out to my car. My phone rang again. The kitchen. Are you on your way back? Yes. I'll be there by midnight. Good. Because I just got off the phone with the Lasker Foundation. Sarah, they want to give you the Basic Medical Research Award. And there's talk of a breakthrough prize. Your treatment is going to change everything. Every cancer patient in the world will benefit from your work. I drove back to Cambridge in silence, my phone lighting up with call after call. By the time I reached my apartment, the news had broken. Harvard researcher develops revolutionary cancer treatment, was trending on every social media platform. My university photo was everywhere. Sunday morning, I woke up to 847 unread emails and 92 voicemails. 23 were from my family. I didn't listen to any of them. The press conference on Monday was surreal. Dean Richardson introduced me as one of the most brilliant minds of her generation. The room was packed with journalists, researchers, pharmaceutical representatives. Camera flashes went off continuously. I explained my research in terms the general public could understand. The questions went on for 2 hours. When I mentioned the projected survival rate improvements, several people in the audience started crying. After the press conference, Dr. Chen pulled me aside. The final bid came in. $5.7 billion from a consortium of pharmaceutical companies. They want to fast-track production immediately. Sarah, your treatment could be available to patients within 18 months. That's faster than I expected. The FDA is making it a priority. Your phase 2 results were too compelling to ignore. This isn't just a breakthrough, Sarah. This is a revolution. My phone rang. My mother. I let it go to voicemail. Tuesday morning, I was on the cover of Time magazine. The scientist who changed cancer treatment forever. The article detailed my research, my years of work, my breakthrough. It mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that I had a sister who was a physician. Amanda called 17 times that day. I didn't answer. Wednesday, I received a formal invitation from the White House. The president wanted to present me with the National Medal of Science. The ceremony would be in 2 months. Thursday, my mother showed up at my lab unannounced. Security called me down to the lobby. Sarah, please. We need to talk. I'm very busy, Mom. I have interviews with the BBC and The Economist this afternoon. I know we made mistakes. I know we didn't appreciate what you were doing. But you're still our daughter. We're still your family. Am I? Because for the last 15 years, you've made it very clear that Amanda was the daughter worth celebrating. I was just the persistent one. The one who wasn't quite good enough. That's not true. It is true. You said it yourself over and over again. You just didn't expect me to succeed despite your dismissal. You thought I'd accept my place as the lesser daughter and be grateful for whatever scraps of attention you offered. He was crying now. Please don't shut us out. Amanda's devastated. She didn't understand. None of us did. Because you didn't try to understand. I gave you every opportunity. You chose to believe I was failing because it was easier than accepting that I might be succeeding in ways you couldn't measure. What do you want us to do? I looked at her, this woman who had raised me, who had loved me in her way, but who had always found me somehow lacking compared to my brilliant sister. I want you to go home. I want you to think about the last 15 years. Every dismissal, every assumption, every time you chose not to ask about my work because you'd already decided it wasn't important. And then I want you to ask yourself why it took a $4 billion patent and a call from the Nobel Committee for you to see me as someone worth your attention. Sarah. I need to get back to my lab. I have work to do. Work that's going to save millions of lives. The work you told me was just experiments. I walked away back to my lab, back to my research. My phone kept ringing. Dad, Uncle Tom, Aunt Carol, relatives I hadn't heard from in years, suddenly wanting to congratulate me, to tell me they'd always believed in me. I silenced them all and got back to work. The Nobel Prize announcement came in October. Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine, for the development of novel targeted cancer therapeutics. I was the youngest woman to ever receive it. Amanda sent flowers to my hotel in Stockholm. The card read, "I'm sorry. I'm so proud of you." I left the flowers in the room when I checked out. At the Nobel banquet, I sat next to a physicist who'd won for his work on quantum computing. "Your family must be incredibly proud," he said. "I suppose they are now," I said. Though they weren't particularly interested until it came with a $1 billion price tag and international recognition. He laughed. The curse of the scientist. No one understands what we do until it changes the world. Or until it makes the news. My first patient to receive the treatment was a 6-year-old girl with stage 4 neuroblastoma. Her prognosis had been 6 months. 3 months after starting my treatment protocol, her tumors had shrunk by 83%. The oncologists were calling it miraculous. I sat with her mother in the hospital hallway after reviewing the latest scans. "You saved my daughter's life," she said, holding my hands. "How can I ever thank you?" "You don't need to thank me. This is why I became a scientist." That evening I finally listened to Amanda's voicemails. There were 47 of them, spanning the 8 months since Thanksgiving. The first dozen were angry, defensive. The middle ones were pleading. The most recent ones were different. "Sarah, I watched your interview on 60 Minutes. The part where you talked about watching cancer take our grandmother when we were kids, and deciding then that you'd find a way to fight it. I'd forgotten that. I'd forgotten that you were the one who held her hand during chemo. I was too squeamish. You were 11 years old and you were already braver than I ever was." I saved that voicemail but didn't call her back. The treatment went into full production 14 months after the patent approval. It was made available worldwide with subsidized pricing for developing nations. The pharmaceutical consortium projected it would reach 10 million patients in the first year alone. At my lab, we were already working on the next generation of targeted therapies. Pancreatic cancer. Glioblastoma. The aggressive cancers that still had dismal survival rates. I had a team of 12 researchers now, a state-of-the-art facility, unlimited funding. "You could retire," Dr. Chin said one evening as we reviewed data. "You've made enough money to never work again. You've achieved more than most scientists dream of. You've won the Nobel Prize, for God's sake. And leave all this?" I gestured at the lab, the equipment, the research that would save thousands more lives. "This is what I was always meant to do. My family just couldn't see it." "Have you talked to them?" "My mother sends emails. Amanda calls every few weeks. I mostly don't respond." "They're trying, Sarah. They're trying now because I succeeded in spite of them. Where were they when I needed support? When I was working 3 jobs to pay for college because Dad said I wasn't worth the investment. When I was defending my dissertation to a room full of skeptical professors and my family couldn't be bothered to understand what I was presenting. They didn't believe in me then. I don't need them to believe in me now." Dr. Chin was quiet for a moment. "That's your choice. But holding on to anger won't make the research better." "I'm not angry. I'm just done pretending we're a close family. They taught me that love is conditional, that worth has to be proven in terms they understand. I've proven it now. But I don't need their validation anymore." 2 years after the patent approval, I was invited to speak at a cancer survivors conference. 3,000 people filled the auditorium, all of them alive because of the treatment I'd developed. Some had been given months to live. They'd now been cancer-free for a year, 2 years longer. A woman approached me after my speech. She was in her 40s, vibrant and healthy. "I was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer 3 years ago. They gave me 6 months. I've now been in complete remission for 18 months, thanks to your treatment. I got to see my daughter graduate high school last week. I'm going to walk her down the aisle next summer. You gave me that." I hugged her, this stranger whose life I'd saved, and felt the weight of what I'd accomplished settle into my bones. This was worth more than any Nobel Prize, any patent, any amount of money. This was why I'd spent all those years in the lab while my family dismissed my work as unimportant. My mother showed up at that conference. I spotted her in the back of the auditorium during my speech. Afterward, she waited while I greeted survivors, signed books, answered questions. She waited for 2 hours. Finally, the crowd dispersed. She approached slowly like she was afraid I'd run. "Hi, Sarah." "Mom. That was an incredible speech. Those people, all those lives you've saved. What are you doing here?" "I came to see you. To really see you this time. Not as Amanda's little sister or the daughter who took longer to graduate. As Dr. Sarah Williams, the scientist who changed the world." I looked at her, this woman who'd raised me but never quite understood me. "It's too late for that," I said quietly. "You had 32 years to see me. You chose not to. You don't get to show up now and claim pride in my accomplishments when you spent decades telling me I wasn't good enough." "I never said that. You said it constantly. Maybe not in those exact words. But every time you dismissed my work, every time you compared me unfavorably to Amanda, Every time you couldn't be bothered to ask about my research. You told me I wasn't worth your attention. You told me I wasn't good enough to deserve your pride. He was crying. I didn't know. I didn't understand what you were doing. You didn't try to understand. That's the difference. Amanda's work was easy for you to understand because you could see immediate results. Patients getting better, lives being saved right away. My work took time. It required faith that I was building toward something meaningful. You never had that faith in me. I'm sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't give me back those years. Sorry doesn't erase the damage. You taught me that my worth had to be proven by external validation. That I had to achieve something spectacular before I deserved your love. And you know what? I achieved it. I exceeded every possible measure of success. But I did it without your support and I don't need it now. I walked away, back to my hotel, back to my research notes, back to the work that had always mattered more than family approval. The following Thanksgiving I didn't go home. I spent it in my lab with my research team, running experiments on our new compound for pancreatic cancer treatment. We ordered Chinese food and worked until midnight. It was the best Thanksgiving I'd ever had. Amanda showed up at my lab in December unannounced. Security called again. Tell her I'm not available, I said. She says it's important. She says she'll wait as long as it takes. I sighed. Fine. 10 minutes. She looked different. Smaller, somehow less confident. The brilliant surgeon who'd always been so sure of her superiority now seemed unsure, almost fragile. Thank you for seeing me. You have 10 minutes. I've been in therapy. For 6 months now. Working through why I needed to put you down to feel successful. Why I couldn't celebrate your achievements. Good for you. The therapist said I was threatened by you. That I saw your intelligence and determination and felt inferior, so I had to minimize your success to protect my ego. She said I was always competing with you even when you weren't competing with me. That's between you and your therapist. Sarah, I'm trying to apologize. Really apologize. Not because you won a Nobel Prize or made billions of dollars. But because I was a terrible sister. Because I spent our entire lives tearing you down when I should have been building you up. Okay. Okay? That's all you have to say. What do you want from me, Amanda? Forgiveness? Reconciliation? A relationship where we pretend the last 15 years didn't happen? I don't have the energy for that. I'm too busy saving lives. The work you said wasn't real medicine. I was wrong. Yes, you were. And maybe someday that will matter to me. But right now, I have research to complete, patients who need treatment, and a world that's finally taking women in science seriously because of what I've accomplished. I don't have time to manage your guilt. I miss you. You miss the idea of me. The little sister who was supposed to stay in her place, who was supposed to be grateful for scraps of attention. You don't miss the real me because you never knew the real me. You were too busy being the star to notice I was becoming the sun. I walked back to my lab, leaving her standing in the lobby. My 10 minutes were up. 3 years after that Thanksgiving dinner, I was named one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people in the world. The profile was written by a Nobel laureate in chemistry. It called my cancer treatment the most significant medical breakthrough of the 21st century, and predicted it would save over 100 million lives in the next decade. My family sent congratulations. I sent polite thank you messages back. We're cordial now, in the way of distant relatives who see each other at obligatory gatherings. I attend Christmas occasionally, always leaving early for lab work. Amanda and I exchange pleasantries. Mom tries too hard to ask about my research. Dad tells people I'm a scientist like he's testing out an unfamiliar word. They want forgiveness. They want reconciliation. They want me to say it's okay, that I understand that family is what matters. But I learned something important in those years they dismissed me. Family is not just biology. Family is the people who believe in you when you're nobody, not just when you're on the cover of Time magazine. Family is Dr. Chin, who saw my potential when I was a struggling undergraduate. Family is my research team who work 18-hour days because they believe in our mission. Family is the thousands of cancer survivors who send me thank you cards, who name their children after me, who got to live because I never gave up. My biological family taught me that success measured in their terms was the only success that mattered. They taught me that external validation was more important than internal worth. They taught me that love is conditional, that pride must be earned by achievements they could understand and brag about. They were wrong about all of it. I'm Dr. Sarah Williams. I have a PhD from Harvard. I run one of the most prestigious research labs in the world. I've won the Nobel Prize. I've saved millions of lives and will save millions more. And I did it all without needing my family to understand, to believe, or to be proud. Their pride means nothing to me now. My work speaks for itself.